of these Chesterton quotes. Like Chesterton is the most quotable author in the world. And speaking of humans, he says, alone among the animals, he is shaken with the beautiful madness called laughter, as if he had caught sight of some secret in the very shape of the universe, hidden from the universe itself. It is not natural to see man as a natural product. It is not common sense to call man a common object of the country or the seashore. It is not seeing straight to see him as an animal. It is not sane. It is against the light. So, for instance, of the rules revolving around sex, which were recently mentioned, none is more curious than the savage custom commonly called, I don't know that one. I don't know why I highlighted that one. We can say that the family is the unit of the state, that it is the cell that makes up the formation. Round the family do indeed gather the sanctities that separate men from ants and bees. He has another quote where he says, no creature could ever come up with something as beautiful as a cocktail and as ugly as a drunk, right? Like there's something so unique about human beings. Like to think that we evolved from apes, and like they were saying, like if you look back at what some of these geneticists are saying and they're studying DNA, they actually will try to convince you that we have Neanderthal DNA in us because that at one point we were mating with Neanderthals. So then I've also heard somebody say that, yeah, you could track our ancestry back to one woman in Africa, but like there's no consensus on these things whatsoever. And it's actually quite absurd to hold to some of these things because it, like with the whole idea of the young earth, old earth thing, I look at it like we say God created the earth in 7 days, right? But God is not on earth. Like God is outside of space and time. So a day for God is not 24 hours. So when he creates the animals on day one and things like that, like, or whatever day it is, day 3 or whatever, like that gives time for dying. Like a day is, but 1,000 years is but a day in the eyes of the Lord. So even if the earth is 5 billion years old, like they say, that's nothing for God. And God could antique things. Like God could blink his eyes and make it like, okay, these things all exist and life happens. It's like nothing to him. My thing is, at a very specific point in time, God does create man and breathe a soul into him.
Yeah.
At a very specific point. And I don't see any basis to say that we evolved from this primordial sludge and from that you get everything. Like something can't come from nothing. It seems pretty preposterous to me. And I don't understand like the obsession with Catholics wanting to actually hold to this view other than they don't want to be seen as ignorant.
That's exactly what it is. They don't want to be seen like, you know,
As
they're in the
ignorant
Stone Age.
religious zealots and stone. You guys got to leave your medieval practices behind. It's like, first off, I don't really care that much about this topic. Like, it doesn't matter that much to me because I'm so concerned with how the things that Jesus said 2,000 years ago are still so poignant and important for us in the modern age that everything he said wasn't trapped in time where once we start getting all this technology it changes. No, if anything, it's even more so. And I can only think back to like the times where I actually left the church, like where I was not going to mass and I left the sacraments, and how quick my life devolved into chaos. And it's like you really can't give me any kind of logical explanation for that other than when you don't live according to the ways God commands us, you're living in a disaster. It's like that video of that girl flipping the tables over that we saw that I posted yesterday. It's like when a society without Christ devolves into madness. It just does. And a lot of people think that we'll be able to keep our little Christian morality like now that Christ is out. And no, paganism is going to fill that void, and it's going to get really ugly really soon.
You know what it is? We haven't evolved from apes. We're devolving into animals and devolving into apes without God is really what we're seeing going on. You know what I mean?
That's kind of funny, actually, that you point that out. It's like without God, we are actually devolving, right? Like Hope is taking shots at us. Hope says,
at me specifically.
Yeah, and then Kaiser Bob says Anthony probably has 90% DNA, Neanderthal DNA, but it's yeah. Caitlin says she goes into crisis without God. Yeah, it's just this is an important topic, especially like I have my son is in school and they're trying to throw this stuff at him, right? So when I talk to my son, I just try to point out to him, say, look, I don't know how much of this is true. All I can tell you is this: there's multiple examples of scientists throwing fake fossils in to try to make it seem like their theory is more cohesive. It's happened multiple times. And
Or they make terrible assumptions, right? I mean, like the way dinosaurs supposedly look has changed what 20 times since I was a kid.
They go from reptiles to now they have feathers and they're birds. They'll find a tailbone of something and they'll create an entire creature out of it with computers.
It's like, oh, suddenly they're rainbow colored and all feathered, and this just happened to be about the same time as being gay was cool. Oh, really? Come on, guys.
I just don't trust them with anything. It's like, especially with the climate change thing, right? It's like you can't even anybody who even challenges the current narrative gets laughed out of the circle. Like, oh, well, look at this idiot. You're a climate denier. It's like, well, are we even willing to put these theories to the test? Like clearly there's a lot of money behind these theories, that there's a very big movement that is a huge investment or a vested interest in making sure these theories get pushed through. And you see how arrogant people are when there's a theory out there that they don't want their theory getting budged. So if somebody comes up with challenging info, it's like that person just gets clobbered out of existence. You saw it with COVID. Any of the doctors that were trying to say, no, look at this and look at this, it was like, oh, you're a quack. And they were suspending them from YouTube. They were suspending them from all these platforms. They weren't even allowing the conversation to happen. And they've actually put Christians into a box of they figured out a way to make it that we're the hateful ones because of the gay agenda. Like we're the hateful ones now, right? Meanwhile, we transform civilization to make it civilization. It wasn't so. It was chaos and barbarism before Christianity. It's like if you look at, dude, a great movie to watch is The Mission, because The Mission is a movie from the 1970s. It has Robert De Niro in it. It has Jeremy Irons in it. It has who is the guy from Taken?
I think it's funny every time you're trying to you relate so much to movies.
Well, here's the reason why. It's like when I watch that movie, I watch it with my kids, and what it is it's about the Jesuits going into South America to these indigenous people there that are legit savages. And we're not on YouTube, so I can say that. These people are legit savages. They're running around. If they have more than 2 kids, they kill the third because the mother can only carry 2 kids. So they don't ever have more than 2 kids. They kill the third just because of, if you got to run from an animal or something, they can only carry 2 kids. They're doing some horrific things. The church comes in and civilizes South America. Like, these people were literally sacrificing human beings. And the church comes in and converts them, and it transforms the earth. I mean, if you go back and you look from the time of Rome, how crazy the world was, the church goes about and civilizes the world. And now they want to make it like we're the uncivilized ones because we're not okay with sodomy. And it's just, it's
all, I mean, it's all demonic inversion, right? Like,
yes,
look at the world before, the world before Christ, and you have sodomy, pederasty, you have the murder of infants if they were in any way deformed or for any reason, really. And now, then you had the church transform it. You got rid of slavery, largely got rid of sodomy, got rid of all of that. And now without God over the last 200 years, we now have abortion. We have people infanticide. We have the gay
abortion. People have to really grasp what that is. It is human sacrifice at the most elemental level, right? It is, I am going to sacrifice my child because I want something for myself. So you're not sacrificing to the gods for rain. You're sacrificing to yourself as your own god. It's even worse.
It's
Like at least
it's Luciferian, right?
it's even worse because at least in the ancient world, it was like, all right, well, we're doing this because a god demands it and we want rain to come. Now we're doing it because I want a car. I want to have a career. I don't want to have to be inconvenienced. It's the most demonic form of human sacrifice that has ever existed. It's worse than it was in the times before Christ. And you're seeing as Christ is taken out of the culture, these things are appearing again. So you're starting to see men getting castrated again, just like they did with the
eunuchs and catamites. And
yeah, these were all like, so the priests of Artemis Ephesia would castrate themselves. And you're seeing that come again. Your people are sacrificing their genitals to a god or goddess that they just don't know it's to a god or goddess, but it all has to do with the sex cult. It's the same thing we were talking about the other day, where it's like the golden calf thing, right? The Israelites didn't care about a golden calf. They wanted to have orgies and things like that. And part of having the golden calf was the way you worship that golden calf was you have these twisted sexual rituals. And that's where it comes from. And that's why a lot of people don't realize also, Egypt worshipped sheep. So like they could eat pigs and they had to worship sheep, where the Israelites couldn't eat pigs.
Right, it was the opposite.
It was the opposite. And the reason God has them sacrifice the sheep is so that even if they wanted to go back to Egypt, the Egyptians would have killed them because they sacrificed their God. It was like the sheep was the god, like that was the untouchable animal. And when they do that, it was like God was like, okay, well, I know how weak you people are, so I'm going to make you sacrifice the sheep so that even if you want to go back to Egypt, you're not going to be able to. Like, I'm getting you out of there and I'm going to free you from these bonds, because the bondage they were in wasn't so much this slavery of work.
No, it wasn't. No, not at all. They were
slaves to the worship of the Egyptian gods.
Yeah, right.
That's why
they weren't allowed to worship the God of Israel, and that's what made them slaves.
So what Moses first demands is, let my people go to worship God.
Let us go in the desert 3 days, worship our God. We'll come back. And Pharaoh's like, no,
no. So then it just became, okay, you want to play this game. And that's really what it was. But all God wanted to do was straighten them out and get them back to right worship. Like, man is not Homo sapien. Man is Homo liturgicus, right? Like that, like that's what man is. Man is actually he's alone among the creatures, in that you could talk about these ancient prehistoric humanoid type things, whatever you want to call them. Like, say there was Neanderthal, say there are Cro-Magnon man. None of them will you see cave drawings, because they don't have art. Because all the cave drawings and things that we see from like early man all have to do with worship.
Yeah.
Every one of them have to do with religious worship, because humans are the only creature on the entire universe that we know of that worship religiously. It's like, and even the people who think they're atheists and don't worship, like, look at what happened during COVID, where these people were worshiping, putting halos around George Floyd and kissing the feet of people.
What do people think like the Grammy Awards or the Academy Awards are, if not a liturgical action? I mean, that's exactly what they are.
Yeah, 100%.
It's a type of liturgy.
Even
the Super Bowl, the Super Bowl halftime performance.
Yeah, it's a liturgy.
That's liturgy.
Yeah, it really is. That's so crazy. It's like, and people don't understand that. But we were seeing it in the streets, these BLM marches where they're, no justice, no peace. That is a chant. It's a religious chant.
It's a demonic procession as compared to a Eucharistic procession.
It's so crazy that people don't see it. Like, there's something innate in us.
Well, look at if you look at like a famous like atheistic. Well, look at your atheistic.
They're making fun of us. Wait, they're making fun of us.
Our own Telegram chat.
The nature debate turned into off the rails. I don't know. The debate was boring.
No one could have ever, like, come on, guys, you had to know that was going to happen.
There's only 11 people watching too. We're just going off on it. I mean,
only one of the two guys in this debate seems to have a brain, anyways.
Let's bring it back up. Let's see where they're at.